depends on your moral alignment, I guess. Because from my perspective, it only strengthens my belief system, which is a Christian paradigm. Because I see this fits into prophecy. I see how this all fits into the whole scheme that has been written going back 1,500 or up to 3,000 years ago. There were, predictions of this cyclical system that fits right into the idea that you find in Revelation, that you find in the major prophets talking about the second advent of the Messiah. On the other hand, the force at the same time is also indoctrinating, like you say, others, because if there is an absolute, if there is a moral absolute, there's actually a belief that there is evil and there is good, and that there are forces on either side of this, then by all means, because there is a war going on, because there's a contest going on, both of these forces are going to be conveying their side of things in these theurgic manifestations, in these basically supernatural manifestations, in the UFO phenomena, the crop circle phenomena, and I think also what we're seeing on the Andean plateau near Tiahuanaco, that was not perceivable until our age.
Right.
Until the QuickBird satellite took those photographs at that high resolution, and they were put on the web in April of 2007. We would never have known they were there because they're too extensive. The place is too remote. Our perspective from the ground, you can't even see that there's something there.
Right.
But from the perspective of space, it's absolutely mind-boggling how huge it is and how complex it is. And so that by itself is saying something about the timing of the event and why it was put there. It may be a big component of it. It may just be something that's an aside, but at the same time, it still fits into the theurgic sort of theory. So I think it can be both. I think it can actually be helping the faithful to grow in their faith, to push them forward in their belief. It can also be just misleading people. It can also be quite damaging when it comes to the Christian belief system and also the world system as it is right now. And that's an incredibly hot topic nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it will be discussed when I go down to Roswell here in near the 4th of July for the E4 conference.
Oh, okay. You're going back there to do another lecture?
Yeah, and it's going to be talking specifically about the Roswell message, what it means, and what really is going to happen as what the message that's actually in the ground in Roswell. What's really going to happen in 2012? What does it mean?
Right.
Why did other people who had some sort of inkling of this, even Terence McKenna, who looked at this through the I Ching,
right,
the mathematical system, was able to say, time itself will stop. How could he say such a thing?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to address.
Oh, fascinating. And David, for people who are interested in attending that lecture, that conference, do you know a website that people can take a look at to get tickets and so forth?
Yeah, I think it's, I'd have to Google it. I Googled it myself. It's a CE4 2008, Roswell Alien Conference, Roswell UFO Conference. I guess there's also a number of sites from the promoter, Joseph Jordan, and it isn't too hard to find.
Okay.
The city of Roswell is promoting it pretty heavily too, so there's a lot of information that's on the search engine.
Perfect.
Sorry, I don't have the exact website, though.
No problem. I'll do like this. I'll do a little search for it, and once I find it, I have it up on our information page that is related to this program, so people can find that easily when they tune in here. But I've obviously tons of questions, and we have so much more to talk about. I definitely want to get into a little bit more about this 2012 thing and the overall communication, what you think is going to happen here in our next segment. I also want to ask you more about, the doomsday clock, etc. If this is considered to be, so to speak, forbidden knowledge, what the potential connection is with the so-called illuminated fraternities, and there's so much more to talk about here. But before we round things off here, David, for this segment, I want to leave the last few minutes here so you can talk a little bit about your next book, of course, but also the books that you have out there already, and how people can get copies of those who want to dive further into your work.
Gee, thank you. That's a good idea. My first book is out of print now, but I may have it reprinted. What is coming out, though, in July 1st, since you can find it on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, is called Temple at the Center of Time. And this focuses on the phenomena of the Jerusalem Temple and its idea of religious and actually physical centrality on this earth. Why it was put there, and why it is so revered as a location where, according to the Jewish sages, time itself starts from this point on the earth. And in fact, they say that all creation itself started from that one point on the earth where the temple used to stand. And which seems, it doesn't make much sense, unless you actually look at Isaac Newton, one of the founders of the idea of science itself, really believe this, and that the writings that he has that are very obscure and hardly known except for a great program that's actually come up in Cambridge called the Newton Project. You can access some of these obscure writings that he has about the temple, and some maybe not so obscure, but just not widely known, like observations on the prophecies of Daniel and St. John and chronology of ancient kingdoms. These works actually focus on the Temple of Jerusalem, and they focus on this idea that somehow temple, architecturally and location-wise, point out specific prophecies in the future and when they're going to actually occur, and in some way fits into time itself. The idea that the temple is the key to all prophecy and to time and location and space. It's almost as if Newton thought it was a holistic key to all of his physical laws. And the book addresses this idea, and I discovered that there were some things that if Newton was alive today, he could have proved his theory that the temple was the center of time, at the center of location, because historically it is actually located so that if you measure its distance from, say, Babylon to Jerusalem, and Babylon actually had brought all these Jews into exile there. When Babylon fell in 539 BC, and you measure the distance between it and Jerusalem, it is 539 statute miles. This goes on and on between every one of the actual cities of significant countries that had anything to do with Israel's history, and especially the temple, and their distances from it. And that's what the book is about, and that is coming out in the first part of July. And apart from that, I've pretty much done nothing else, because it was a daunting sort of task going through some of the work that Newton has. Some of it, of course, hasn't been translated into English, so you have to kind of brush up on Latin and work pretty hard to figure out what was being completely said. But that's what's been happening.
Oh, I can imagine. It sounds very interesting indeed, and I definitely have a few questions about that later on as well. That's very interesting. And I guess is your website the primary location to go to get a copy of the book once it's out?
It just going to Amazon, the bookstore there.
Yeah.
It's also at Tower.com, Christian Book Source, Barnes and Noble. So yeah, the major bookstores. You can find it mostly online right now in pre-orders. And I'm going to go down to my local Hastings and ask them to stock it.
Right,
so I can bring my friends and say, "There's my book." Go on the computer and find it. So.
That's a good idea. I will do like this. I'll have a link up, of course, to David's website and also to Amazon, so people who are interested and can find this easy on how to get a copy. But with this, stay with us. There's so much more to talk about here, but we're going to take a short break at this point here. So if you will, David, stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this break.